Terraria's Ranger class is commonly referred to as the most consistently strong throughout the game, offering a plethora of easy-to-use, high-damaging weapons from start to finish. Within this collection are two main subclasses you'll need to choose from: guns and bows, which, while both are powerful enough to push you forward, each come with different areas of the game they excel at. Today, we're going to be looking at a post-mech but pre-Plantera bow that might just be the best in its class. Of course, I'm talking about the Pulse Bow. Not only does this deal damage comparable to much later game weapons, but actually has the highest base damage of any bow in the entire game. Before we do take a look at this thing though, did you know that around 82% of you beautiful people aren't actually subscribed? So if you enjoy these weapon reviews, don't forget to drop a like and subscribe to help support the channel. Right then, let's see how you get this thing. Interestingly, not too long before the 1.4.4 update, the Pulse Bow was obtainable as a post-Plantera weapon. However, after the slaughter of weapon balancing changes that came with this update, the Pulse Bow now only requires each of the 3 mech bosses to be defeated. The crazy part is, to compensate for this change, the bow was nerfed by a measly 5 damage, and that's it. With this in mind though, it can be a bit of a faff to obtain, being sold from the good old travelling merchant. When it comes to actually farming for this thing, and I use that term very loosely, the most you can do is just wait for it organically to be sold, or sleep in a bed AFK to force as many travelling merchants as possible. Unfortunately though, with the travelling merchant only having a 22.12% chance of showing up each day, and having an even rarer chance of selling the actual bow, may the RNG god have mercy on your soul. I suppose the only way you could increase your chances slightly is by throwing one of the many hats you've obtained from slaughtering your merchant in Shimmer to get a peddler's satchel. Once consumed, the merchant will sell 1 extra item, so hopefully this will bless you when it comes to getting the bow. Okay, assuming you are able to get one, let's see if it was worth it. As mentioned, the Pulse Bow finds itself in an interesting place in where it was designed for Post-Plantera, then subtly nerfed to fit post-mech. In turn, this does make it kind of busted, dealing significantly more single target DPS compared to other guns and bows obtainable at this point. Not to mention its special glowing bolt arrows it fires, which are unaffected by gravity, ricochet, and pierce up to 5 enemies. This makes it an absolute beast against groups of enemies, beating the likes of the Uzi's high-velocity bullets, and even the Daedalus Stormbow with holy arrows. And speaking of arrows, due to the Pulse Bow converting all special arrow types into one of its own, we will be using cursed arrows going forward for maximum base damage. And this against the real thing is unsurprisingly equally as effective, being able to take out mid to high HP lines of enemies with absolute ease. Also, with it having a higher base damage than the Phantasm, a Pose and Moonlord bow, its single target damage isn't that bad either, taking out these biomimics quite quickly. Anyway, I think it's about time we took this thing past Plantera, shall we? Overall, the bow performs extremely well during this fight, with the ricochet creating a ton more extra DPS from the bolts bouncing all over the arena. In a way, you can probably squeeze out more DPS by making your Plantera arena smaller. Also, with its 5 piercing with no drop-off, Plantera's second phase is a piece of cake, and the fight's over in only a minute or 2. Moving on, the rule of thumb is, if a weapon's good against Plantera, it's probably even better against Golem, right? Well, absolutely, with the ricochet and piercing both working together to increase its DPS even more against this boss. Honestly, the Pulse was one of the easiest, most capable ranged weapons at this stage of the game, even compared to Plantera drops like the Venus Magnum. This is especially true in tight spaces, which are environments you'll find yourself in repeatedly at this stage of the game, being the perfect weapon for farming the Post-Plantera dungeon, and of course the Lizard Temple Fort Golem. And although past this point it will begin to fall off due to enemy scaling, it can be a viable option for dealing with the earlier waves of the moon invasion. Just be ready to upgrade though when it comes to taking out those mini-bosses. So yeah, the Pulse Bow, an absolute unit of a bow that's only let down with its disappointing RNG-focused obtainability. I suppose you have to give it a compromise somewhere though, otherwise it would be too good to be true. This has been sockrteez, and I'll see you in the next one.